Mhm. Hi, Hassan. Thanks for having me. Happy to be with you today.
Thank you. So, can you explain what Cross-Board Impact Ventures CBIV does in a nutshell, please?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, we're a venture capital firm that has an impact mandate. And so that makes us a little bit unique in the ecosystem. So on the one hand, we operate like any other VC firm. We look for great startups. And in our case, we invest in health technologies that address healthcare concerns for women, children, and adolescents. And that's kind of our focus. And we'll focus at typically the Series A, B, or so. And we have kind of our own definition of what we look for in terms of characteristics. But what makes us differentiated versus other VC firms is that in addition to targeting VC returns, we also target health impact metrics. And the health impact metrics we target are for low and middle income countries with an emphasis on the African market. And why we did this, or you know how we define the approach is really to close the time gap. Because if you look in the market today, many health technologies that are world class, that really change the pathway of healthcare for a person, will be commercialized in North America and Europe decades before they're made available in emerging markets. And that's the sort of health inequality that we're trying to close, in addition to really focusing on health conditions for women, children, and adolescents that tend to be underinvested by other typical firms. So that's what we do. We're a team. We've grown a little bit, so we're now 9 people, majority based in Toronto. We have one venture partner in London, and and that's us.
Oh, wow. You're in Toronto right now. Which part of Toronto?
We're in the southwest. Well, I'm in the southwest of the city. We're still a virtual team. Coming out of COVID, we launched our company, at a time where we were all working virtually, and we still really haven't found the need to move into an office space at this point. Maybe that'll evolve over the next years, but at this point, we're virtual team, so we're sort of a little bit spread out, generally in the west side of Toronto.
What can be better than that? You can work on your pajamas, It's great.
Exactly. So you wear a sweater and you do, the comfy pants.
Okay, so I'd like to congratulate for the funding that you guys just had, like $90 million. That I hope that has been great. So what will this fund uh, use for? Like how you guys are gonna use it? Can you elaborate a little bit, please?
Yeah, so our portfolio, really, we're sort of a high conviction portfolio. So we will invest, as I was saying, typically Series A. Although for us, how we've defined that is for non-regulated technologies, we'll look for 1 to 10 million of revenue, and for regulated technologies, we'll look for either a CE mark if the company's European, and that's where they started to register their med device, or FDA approval on at least one product. So we want to invest in commercial stage businesses, and we're aiming to invest in 9 or so, maybe 10 companies with this funding. And typically, our first check will be 3 million on average. Some of them are smaller, some of them are bigger, but that's kind of how we aim to manage a portfolio. And really aiming to be able to follow on once or twice more.
Okay, sounds great. So how does CBIV decide to invest in healthcare technology companies?
So for us, we're sort of a unique fund. At typical VC firms, like, I mean, every VC looks at the world a bit differently. Some groups start with a thesis based on a kind of technology they're looking for. Some look at it based on the coolest thing that comes across their door, but without having a specific portfolio construction in mind. For us, we have limited partners that care a lot about certain healthcare areas. And in particular, those are sexual reproductive health, maternal health, newborn child health. and non-communicable diseases, which are chronic conditions like cardiovascular health or cancer. And so for us, we sort of start with this idea of, assuming the company is interesting from a VC point of view, like that we see, the typical stuff every VC firm looks for a good team, strong technology, good IP, nothing unique about that, about our firm. But what's quite different is we really are looking to build a portfolio, like I said, 9 or 10 companies that address many different healthcare areas for women, children, and adolescents in a somewhat diverse way. So we started out knowing we wanted to have, 3 or 4 companies in the maternal or newborn health area. So we've been looking there. We knew we wanted to do cardiovascular. So right now we're taking a deep dive in that area. So it's a little bit of an overlay of the portfolio between that sort of risk reward, great companies with a good return profile, but also we want to to target specific health areas that are of interest. And so those would be, I guess, the 2 lenses that we do. So in a sense, we kind of do the work twice because we build an impact forecast for each company we invest in. So we do all the work that we've always done as VCs, and then we dig very deeply into the health impact of the technology and how it might scale in different regions of the world, and build a forecast around that.
Ah, sounds fair enough. Good. So, actually, what motivates you to focus on women's, children's, and adolescents' health?
Um, it was sort of the initial idea for the firm. I was when I started on this sort of project, now looking, about 5-6 years ago when the first concept came to mind. It's kind of incredible that I thought this fund in 2018, and we're 2024. But I was at a point, I had worked in investment management for almost 20 years, had done capital markets, where I spent a lot of time in your neck of the woods in New York, and a few years in VC in a general tech fund, and sort of realized that the thing that I was most passionate about was really technology investing, and within that, I wanted to find a healthcare area that meant a lot to me. I have 2 young daughters. They're now a little more grown. They're now 11 and 12, and just wanted to do something that I could relate to. And when we started to dig into the gaps in healthcare for women, children, and adolescents, we kept finding, statistics like 4% of research dollars, primary research, goes towards women's health. And you look at trying to find statistics around funds focused on children's health, and you can't really find all that many. There's a few now, but at the time there were really none. Similarly, in women's health, it's pretty sparse. So we thought there was an opportunity to invest in a sector where, because it's not, when you look at it, it's not picked over. So we get to choose what we want to do, but we also get to know the acquirers pretty well, because the way they, just like any other healthcare area, the larger companies that operate in these sectors need to acquire businesses to grow. That's not super unique to the health of women, children, and adolescents, but we felt that there was a need and a market opportunity there, and as a team with a strong impact mindset, it felt like just a good natural place to play. Plus, we're just very passionate about it.
Right, right. Passion is very important when you invest. So, just shift gear a little bit. So, where did you work in New York? I know from your LinkedIn post, I mean LinkedIn, but I want the audience to know, where did you work in New York?
So I worked. I started my career. I did my PhD in financial engineering, and started working at one of the Canadian banks, and then ended up at a firm called Northwater Capital Management that managed, I think we had about 10 billion in hedge fund assets at the time. And so that was a period of time where, I was in New York once or twice a week visiting some of our managers there. So I had a chance to get to know the area pretty well.
So you're a financial engineer. Awesome. Yeah. So, wow, great major though. Very smart move. Okay. Can you share a success story from one of your portfolio company?
One of our investments that I cover, it's a company called Sonio. They're a French company. And what they've created is, I would say, one of the most user-centric platforms to detect anomalies of the fetus or the pregnancy during sort of those more comprehensive second trimester exams. And they've built it quite smartly. There's a reporting feature in there, which sounds pretty basic in 2024, but believe it or not, the current tools that are used for ultrasound reporting are pretty basic. They're filled pretty slowly, and so they've created some automation around that and some workflow optimization. But the really cool features are around the AI, where it really helps the practitioner with determining if they've taken all the correct images, if they've taken a high quality image. So if you're taking a picture of the heart or the brain, that you've actually gotten the view properly. If you think of it like a fetus moves around in the belly of the mom relative to like taking an adult scan where, your liver is where your liver is, but the liver of the baby, it's not really obvious. That little thing moves in the tummy, right? And they've also created some AI around detecting not only is the image good enough, but is it normal? And is there an anomaly? And there's well over 500 different anomalies that a fetus can have, and 50% of the time when the anomaly is present, the specialist can't find them. So they've created software to solve that. And one of the recent successes that they've had was to they're sort of in the process of an implementation at a chain of pediatrics hospital called Pediatrics, which is, I believe, the second largest in the U.S. So that's a huge opportunity that they're working on. So we're pretty excited about that because it's a marquee customer that should then help them scale up. So we're pretty excited about that. It's a company we've only been an investor in for 6 months, and the fact that they were able to have that success so early after an investment bodes well for the future.
Wow, nice. How do you make sure that diversity and inclusivity in your investment for CBIV?
But really, it's kind of interesting, an interesting metric, because often if you look at traditional portfolios, and I worked at many traditional firms, before I started CBIV, I was looking at it and I was like, oh, what's the diversity of my portfolio? And I thought through, the prior firms that I was working at, and, I was always the only woman on the board. All the CEOs of the companies that we funded, maybe not all, but 90+% were white males. And I've been lucky. Like, I really worked with individuals, I can honestly say, whether it was at Northwater or Grenville, where I was at before, these were great men. I worked with men, but they were great guys. They were not prejudiced whatsoever. But one of the things I'm realizing now at Cross Border is because we're a women-led team, we're a diverse team ourselves, and hopefully we'll add our diversity and bring in a white guy along the way. I think we're more approachable, and so we get different kinds of people approach us all the time about their businesses. So my pipeline is diverse to begin with. Like many times, it's kind of funny. We'll just blink, and all of a sudden we're working on 3 or 4 companies that we're looking at, and all of them have a diverse founder of some way. And once in a while we'll look and like, oh, we're working actually on with 3 founders, and they're all white males, and it just flows. But I would say that overall, like our pipeline from the top is diverse, and I think, as I said, part of it is we maybe look different, look more approachable, and that's the only difference I can say, because I never worked with people that would not have been welcoming of different kinds of founders. But it's just, I think there's an image. The other aspect is, let's face it, we're in women and child health. So perhaps just as a sector, relative to other sectors, we are working in a sector that might be more diverse. So some of it is the pipeline, but the other piece is the tools that we use. So when we do diligence on companies, we do analyze diversity from all angles. It's not a screen in, although I would say that if we came across a company and people were very closed-minded when we ask all the questions about their diversity. And so I think if we came across a team that was particularly closed-minded, we might screen them out because of that, but it's never really happened. And what we find is when we do, we look at, is there a pay gap? We look at the composition of the board, the composition of the management team, the actual teams. We look at how companies market their products. If they're doing a clinical trial for their products, which hospitals are they picking? Because that will determine what types of patients that come into the trials. So obviously, if you're doing a trial at, thinking of maybe the French market, a government hospital versus a private hospital, you'll have different kinds of people. So we just pay attention to the detail. We ask questions. We have frameworks that we've built, and some of them include Gender Equality Fund tools that they're an investor in our fund, so we look at some of what they have. Bank of Development of Canada has some tools that are interesting. IRIS Plus, put together by the Global Impact Investment Network framework. So we have all these tools, but we also just pay attention, and it's kind of natural for us. I'd say, it's just kind of who we are, and so the portfolio kind of reflects who we are as a team.
Okay, great. So since you talked about hiring some white guys down the line, what about brown guys?
We have a couple
Joking.
brown guys on
I'm
our
just
team,
joking. I'm just
actually.
joking. I know in your IT team that must be some brown guys for sure.
No, actually, on our investment team. Yeah, we're pretty diverse, actually.
It was a joke. It was a joke. I didn't want to say that. Just I just said it.
No, it's interesting, because if we look at our statistics, I don't have the latest numbers because we just added some people, and our ESG person's doing it for this quarter. But we very much are a diverse team. There's, I think, 3 of us who are white on our team. So,
Okay.
but it is what it is. It's just we just came together as a team of smart people. It was again, it's a bit about the pipeline, right? Of who you select from. We are based in Toronto. Toronto is a little more diverse than other markets, so perhaps that has an impact as well.
Of course, nice. Okay, so next I'd like to ask you, tell me a little more about your LP's role in CBIV investments.
It's very much had an impact, and it's a bit bidirectional, I will say. So our lead investors into this fund were investors that have impact first missions to drive health outcomes in low and middle income countries, with a strong emphasis on women, children, and adolescents in Africa. And that includes Grand Challenges Canada that supported us kind of as an incubation partner. It includes groups like KfW Capital, the Development Bank of Germany, Children's Investment Fund Foundation in the UK, Johnson and Johnson Ventures. So there are groups like particularly I think that core group of initial investors really care deeply about the mandate of the fund. And while I say in terms of bidirectionality, I think we kind of designed a product to make sure that we addressed some of the health areas that they're particularly interested about. So, for example, the capital we received from the German government is specifically from a ministry that has a mandate around maternal health and reproductive health. And so it's been a collaboration, and I think when I think about the future of the firm as a VC firm, you're always thinking about your next fund and so on and so forth, which is a little sad, but just is part of running the business. We always take that into consideration. Is how are the priorities of the investors that have supported us and the ones that we would want to work in the future is evolving over the course of time. Fortunately, there are areas of healthcare where there's a lot to be done, and so I sadly will not be out of business for the next few funds. But that's kind of how it plays out, and also we're super collaborative, and the way that we do our ESG analysis and our impact analysis is really at the forefront of the industry, and so we've also been collaborating with a lot of our limited partners on developing and improving the reporting that we provide them. And often when we say reporting, everybody wants to barf a little because it's, it is a bit of extra work. And what we're finding is we've developed a proprietary tool for our companies to report their ESG and impact metrics into. And that kind of gets rolled up at our fund level. And then we provide that to our limited partners, like a summarized version of it. But then they also are developing their own tools. And so it's like that interaction. So we'll see how it evolves over the course of time because we work pretty hard to create our own reports, but they're also working really hard because they also have investors in some cases. And so there's a bit of collaboration there to try to find ways to become effective. Impact investing in VC and impact investing generally is not as mature as financial reporting is. So if you think of US GAAP, these are, there's rules, there's parameters that exist that have been tried and tested, but impact is a little different. It's harder to standardize, quite frankly. So there's these collaborations, I guess, on thesis and on reporting that we're working through. And generally, I like my LPs. They're brilliant folks, and so it's always something that I enjoy doing.
Cool. What's the name of your dog?
The name of my dog, I have two dogs. One is Cassie and the other one is S'mores. They're a border collie and an Australian shepherd, and we're very lucky they haven't gone totally crazy while we were talking so far. I'm making no promises for the next 15, 20 minutes.
So your daughters are so lucky though, I guess.
They are. So yeah, Emma and Olivia, they've been on this journey, and they're brilliant kids. I have to say that they're quite independent for their age if I compare to the other kids that I have.
That's good. So, any key trends in health and technology these days which really excites you?
It's sort of interesting because our firm, there's trends we follow, but also we're pretty sector focused, and so I do find that question interesting. But obviously, AI into healthcare is a big trend and theme that we see showing up, and for our fund, it's maybe a little different than for other funds because we focus again, like on certain healthcare outcomes. But when we look at pretty well every tool out there that's got an electronic component, there's some version of AI or machine learning that's required to develop the algorithms, because the next generation medical tools need to have an element of precision medicine. And how you do that is by differentiating between that mother and that mother, and the pairing of her signals versus her babies, and so we do see kind of AI in any kind of medical device that has an electronic component showing up everywhere. We see a lot in decision support tools, and if you look maybe when we started on this fund 4 or 5 years ago, there was this ambition, I think, of founders to replace the doctor, perhaps. And as time has evolved, I think they've become more efficiency tools for medical professionals and allowing them to be faster at making a decision. So the ultimate decision maker remains the human, but the AI becomes more of a support tool, which is pretty exciting and interesting, and what's unique about our fund, because we also look at emerging markets, is in some of those markets it may actually be the decision maker, or more often the decision maker for a clear-cut case. So we're following that pretty carefully. We're also what other trends are we following? I would say, yeah, AI is a very big one, and I would say in maternal health in particular, with what's going on in the U.S. in reproductive health, I think there's a bit more drive, push, interest towards life-saving technologies that was maybe a little less there a few years back. There's definitely interest, both from the acquirer side and the medical practitioners, and our fund plays nicely in there as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So rather than writing a check, how do you support a company? I mean, a startup definitely, which is in your portfolio.
Yeah. So we're a very hands-on shop, and so one of the challenges that companies in our portfolio will have that others might not, particularly those that are focused on reproductive health or maternal health, and we do other things. I just happen to be more focused on those areas than my partner. You're getting half of the team, half of the partners. She might have different thoughts, but one of the things that I do, particularly in this sector, is think through financing strategy in a lot of details, and for good reasons. It's a little harder in this sector to raise money. When you think of products like the MASH that had big lawsuits around them, there's a nervousness by non-specialist investors to get involved in gynecological health or women's health, and so I think one of the things that our companies have to do that operate in these sectors is think through financing a little more broadly, including bringing in grants, different forms of debt and equity. And when they talk to equity investors, it's not just the traditional equity shops. We bring in a lot of impact investment shops that are maybe a little more generalist, but have an inclination to invest in this sector. And so that's a big part of the work that we do, particularly for those kinds of companies, is think through the financing and take an active role in making introductions. We have a pretty broad network in North America and Europe of investment shops that are open to these kinds of investments. And then, most active VCs, we open doors to potential customers, potential acquirers. When our companies have a technical challenge, we have a really broad set of technologists that we can introduce them to. So it's really sort of full gamut, but perhaps proportionally more than I have in the past working with them on financing.
Okay. Just a question. Do you know anybody named Jennifer from Minerva AI or something? Minerva AI. She's from Toronto. That's what I'm asking.
Do not, but the words seem familiar. I just do not.
It's Minerva AI. I just took her interview late December, and she's also from Toronto. She's a very nice person. She's basically working in AI, but not specifically in every field. It's just financial field, financial AI regulation and stuff. So it was a nice conversation. So in less than 2 months, I'm taking interviews from two Canadians. It's pretty different.
Yeah.
uh,
Worries.
Canada is gonna be. I think it's gonna be one of those AI hub for the regulations, right?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Canada's got its unique strengths. Like I think even I have been part of two financial crises in Canada, and each time I think we did pretty well in our financial sector because we're a little bit more regulated. And I think for AI, people don't really know this, but some of the four founders of AI were Canadians.
Right.
Still are Canadians, and we tend to, yeah, I could see that we'll probably develop some parameters, and in some ways, a lot of the times, America can borrow the tools. We're a nice experimental ground. Let's see what Canada does and see what's useful, what's not, and do our own thing. But we become something to consider, I suppose.
Right. One of the legendary investor, one of those first hire from Facebook, Chamat Pilahapatia. He's also from Canada. He went to
Yeah,
Waterloo, I believe. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Great. Great. Could you tell us just a little more about impact CBIV aims to make, actually?
So for the current fund, we've set a health impact target of 400,000 lives saved and 8 million lives improved in low and middle income countries. And so the way we're building the portfolio, like I was saying, is really to target kind of these health outcomes as part of one of the criteria that we look to for investment. And that's specific for low and middle income countries, as defined by the World Bank, and of course will touch many more lives if the portfolio is successful, because we've got obviously commercialization in North America and Europe as a typical primary market for those technologies. So we haven't set a target for the rest, I guess, reverse rest of the world. Because usually people say US and then rest of the world is the rest. But we have not really set a North American or European target for this fund. Our goal is to learn a little bit more, and maybe by fund two we'll be a little more aggressive on the target.
Okay, cool. Follow up question with that. Did you guys invested in any companies from Asia or South Asia specifically? Because some of the countries are from
Yeah.
Asia, like third world or coming to middle income, something like that.
We do not. It's not our focus, and it's not because there's not great investment opportunities in these markets. It's just it's not our specialization.
Hmm.
I've always invested in North America and Europe, so has Donna, and so has the rest of the team, and so that's kind of our expertise.
Hmm.
We're really not an emerging markets investment team ourselves. Uh, we have a lot of friends that focus on those markets. So once in a while, when we get good deal flow from these markets, we sort of connect them to each other. But it's not our focus.
Right, fair enough. Could you please elaborate on concept of investing with gender-focused perspective a little more?
So in healthcare, it's perhaps a little more uh, obvious than in other sectors, but there's in the most obvious way, selecting products that address women's or children's health. So anytime you do reproductive health or something in those sectors, you will kind of meet that criteria right there. But when we look at, let's say, platforms that do chronic diseases like cancer, like kidney disease, or like cardiovascular health, when you put your gender hat on, you will focus on whether you know is the version of the disease that the technology is addressing the best one that is more prevalent in male versus female, as an example, or another type of question that we'll look into is it as good in, if it's a diagnostics tool or if it's a device to treat, is it as good for male and female? Was it tested on males and females? Was it tested on, because we use an intersectional lens, was it tested on a broad set of people? So, for example, we're looking at an opportunity right now in pulse oximetry, and we spent a ton of time making sure that they used a wide range of skin tones for that technology, because it's a tool that's already been identified as having challenges. And so it's really, I think, at its core in healthcare, it's about paying attention, asking those questions, and not letting founders get away with the lazy way. Because often I would say that what's being done in a lot of cases in the past is, well, we go with male cells, male mice, male patients between 18 to 30. Like it seems to be easier. So if you look at certain breast cancer drugs, they were developed on guys. So we just dig a little deeper and make sure that when we make an investment, the gender as a variable has been included and considered.
So any investment focus down the line, like what kind of a startup you guys are looking forward to invest down the line? Any specifications?
We've been completely consistent with this fund. We're focused on four subsectors. We're looking, again, as I said, sexual reproductive health, maternal health, newborn health, and child health. We're also looking at chronic diseases and health infrastructure. Right now, we're looking at two opportunities in maternal health. One that's got a focus on postpartum hemorrhage, which is still one of the leading conditions leading to maternal mortality or loss of fertility. We're also looking at an opportunity in cardiovascular health and an opportunity in cancer detection. So pretty broad range, but in each case, that gender-focused gender lens is there in terms of the way these companies have addressed the issue.
Pretty exciting for founders, hopefully. So, do you have any advice for founders or co-founders who are working in this field?
Advice. I would say I tend to be called upon when folks are looking to raise money. So that's what I tend to kind of work with founders, and in particular in women, child, and adolescent health. It's really about being comprehensive as to the source of the capital you look for, while also, in the complete opposite, making sure you don't take in capital that leads you away from what you want to ultimately achieve. So, for example, you might be able to get a grant to fund something that's not core to your mission. Sometimes it's best to stay away from that. But it's really about, having perseverance and being creative and staying in touch with people. I think one of the things that I've learned in our own fundraising is that it was the reason we were able to pull it off was because I stayed in touch with investors for 4 or 5 years. And I think founders, when you get a no from someone, maybe I'll never invest in your company, but if you keep me updated, I might come across some other fund that's a fit for you down the road. And so I think just really thinking sometimes a little less transactionally about everything and keeping people updated. There's nothing wrong with having these relationships, even if someone's not an investor into your financial products.
Of course. Sounds great. So, any advice for aspiring investors who's trying to invest in this field?
Um, I think a couple of pieces. One is, when on the fundraising side, it's very similar to a founder. I would say that there's very few, very limited differences, except I think it's a little harder and it takes a lot more conversation. So I would typically advise startups to have a list of, 50 to 100 potential funds that they might talk to, but as a VC, your list should be 500 plus. So it's a little more, but it's no difference. Really staying in touch, building relationships, that kind of stuff. And then on the allocation side, I think what we do from day one is focusing on the exit. Who's going to buy that company? In health technology, generally, it's mostly an M&A game at the end as opposed to an IPO game. And so really building the relationships with the buyers, understanding what they look for, and trying to come in at the right time, which, is timing is everything, as they say sometimes, but really paying attention to what the buyers are looking for. And that changes through time. Sometimes in our sector, they're looking for revenue build. Sometimes they're looking more for, acquiring right at FDA, but just staying tapped into what the acquirers are looking for, I think is really important as a VC.
Okay. We are pretty much close to the ending, but I'd like to ask you a couple of more questions. It's a very, I would say like it's pretty unique questions, but it's gonna help the people who are listening today. So, beyond your VC role, tell me about yourself, like who Anna is, and you know, maybe a full-time mom or somebody who likes tennis, whatever.
Yeah, I work pretty well all the time, but when I don't work, yeah, I have 2 kids, 2 dogs, 2 cats. I love cycling. I think that one of the things that's kept me sane is cycling in summer and skiing in winter. If you live in a winter country, I think you have to love winter sports. Otherwise, it's pretty miserable. At least that's me. I enjoy doing sports. Love to travel, eat good food, drink good wine with friends. Yeah, I think I would say that if I had to describe myself, I like to make sure that there's a little bit of fun with the business. If you're going to be working so hard, you have to sort of integrate in your business the things that you like doing. And with this fund and this firm, I've definitely been able to do that.
Okay. Is there any question that I'm missing but you'd like to share, or anything that I think I should have asked but I didn't?
Um, I can't think of it. I think what maybe like in closing, one of the things I would say is that we're pretty excited to have had this fund closing. Having a first time fund for an emerging manager at 90 million is a big achievement that we're quite proud of. And we're excited about the companies that we're investing in and looking at. There's lots and lots of innovation in women and child health, and we're really seeing these opportunities, I think, to get involved in places where acquirers have an interest, for those companies that have the right characteristics. And that's kind of the expertise that we've built in-house, and we're pretty excited about that.
Awesome. Anna, it was really pleasure talking to you, and thank you for your time today.
Thanks very much, Hassan. It was a pleasure to chat with you, and hopefully we'll see you in Toronto one of these days.
Sure. Thank you very much. Have a